Today I will be sharing with you my October wrap-up, and so all in all, I think I had a pretty good reading month, so here we go. The first book that I picked up this month was Landline by Rowell, and so this follows the story of Georgie McCool, whose marriage is in a bit of a precarious place. And to make matters worse, she's forced to work through the Christmas holidays, leaving her husband to take their two daughters alone to the grandmother's house. And so this adds more stress in her marriage because she always seems to choose her work life over her family life. And so understandably, Georgie is pretty upset by this, unsure if she still has a future with her husband. So rather than go back to her empty home, she decides to stay with her mother. And when she tries calling her husband using this old landline phone that she finds, she finally manages to get in touch with him. The only catch is that she's talking to her husband of the past. And so Georgie uses this phone to sort of revisit her relationship, to try and find out where things went wrong and ultimately try and save her marriage. To be honest, I don't quite remember all the little details of this novel, as I did read it very early on in the month, but I will say that I really enjoyed it, especially the interactions that Georgie had with her husband over the phone. I thought it was really interesting to see where her relationship, started and what it stemmed from. And so I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Rowell's work is always a pleasure to read, and recommend this to anyone looking for a nice, quick read or who is already a fan of Rainbow's work. Next, I picked up Sass and Sorcery, the first volume in the Rat Queens fantasy comic series, written by Kurtis J and artwork by Roc Upchurch. And so this follows the Rat Queens, who are a group of adventurers as they fight against assassins and other creatures that are out to get them. I really enjoyed this comic. I thought it was really funny, intelligent, and the characters are also really likable and easy to get attached to. Personally, I also enjoyed the style of the art, and so I gave this comic 5 out of 5 stars, and I really look forward to the release of the second volume. If you are interested in checking out this comic though, I will say that it is intended for more mature audiences. There's a lot of violence, swearing, and also sexual themes. So just consider yourself warned if that's not something that you think you're ready for. Afterwards, I picked up The Blood of Olympus by Riordan. Now this is the 5th and final book in the Heroes of Olympus series, and so to avoid spoilers, I'll keep this really short. I will say that I definitely would have liked to have seen more of certain characters, but all in all, it was a pretty good conclusion to an epic series. So Riordan gets 5 out of 5 stars from me, and I look forward to some of his future works. Afterwards, I picked up Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and so this follows the story of Nick Dunn, whose wife goes missing on the morning of their 5-year wedding anniversary. Nick then becomes a suspect of murder in the investigation surrounding his wife's disappearance. So I thought that the first half of this book was a little slow, but then things definitely pick up in the second half, so much so that I didn't want to put down the book since I was so anxious to find out how it all ends. I will say that I really enjoyed Gillian Flynn's style of writing, the way she manages to manipulate and influence the reader's thoughts. However, I was slightly disappointed with the ending. I didn't quite get the conclusion that I would have liked. And so I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I definitely enjoyed all the suspense and the plot twists, but once again I wasn't quite reconciled with the ending. So after finishing Gone Girl, I fell into a bit of a reading slump of sorts, I guess you can call it. And so I decided to just continue reading Percy Jackson's Greek Gods by Riordan. This also allowed me to sort of dive back into the worlds of gods and demigods, which I really did miss after finishing The Blood of Olympus. And so Greek Gods is pretty much a collection of short stories about each of the 12 gods that make up the Council of Olympus, and it's told from Percy Jackson's point of view. And so while reading this, you can definitely expect to have, his humor and his little funny, witty comments here and there. I enjoyed each and every one of the short stories, and they are accompanied by some pretty lovely illustrations. And so I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Then continuing on again with these kind of short, fun, easy reads, I picked up File Under 13 Suspicious Incidents by Lemony Snicket. This is a companion novel of sorts to his latest series, All the Wrong Questions, and it follows Lemony Snicket as he investigates 13 suspicious incidents that take place in a town called Stained by the Sea. And so this book is divided in a pretty interesting manner. The first half compiles all the cases, and then the second half has all the conclusions. So once you finish reading about one of the cases, it will tell you which page to flip to and under what name you will find the conclusion. So I thought it was a nice little addition to the book. It made the reading experience enjoyable and fun. There are also some conclusions that have been misfiled, so they don't actually match any of the cases that you read about. And so this is a fun read, especially if you are a fan of his All the Wrong Questions series. I will, however, recommend that you read at least the first or the second book of the series, just to be a little more familiar with some of the characters and some of the settings that do show up in this novel. Likewise though, if you have read the main series, this book isn't necessary to read as it doesn't contribute anything to the main plot of the main story. And so I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was definitely funny and enjoyable. Next, I picked up the first volume in the Adventure Time comic series, and so Adventure Time was created by Pendleton Ward, and the comic is written by Ryan North and illustrations by Shelli, Paroline, and Braden. And so this follows the adventures of Finn and Jake in the land of Oo. Now, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this comic series. I thought that the plot and the story was quite silly most of the time, but I think that that's what it's meant to be. I'm just used to stories that have a little more substance to them. However, it was funny and enjoyable, and I did appreciate the little comments that were sometimes inserted below the main comic boxes of the story. I thought it was a nice little addition as well, and the characters are original, they're likable, the artwork is very colorful. And so I think that if you are a fan of the television series, then you will probably be interested in these comics. And although I don't have a star rating for this at the moment, I will say that I am interested in possibly giving the second volume a chance. So after reading the last 3 sort of lighter novels, or comics, I think I was ready to finally dive back into some more mature stuff, and I picked up The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. So this story follows our narrator as he returns to his hometown for a funeral. He then finds himself going to visit the location of his childhood home, and then walks down the road to where one of his friends used to live and sits down next to this pond that his friend used to refer to as the ocean. He then starts remembering all these things that happened during his childhood when he was around 7 years old. So this book has some mysterious and some fantastical elements to it. It kind of explores the fine line between adulthood and childhood, and also simply accepts these strange happenings as a part of reality without any questions or answers. This is the first novel I've ever read by Neil Gaiman, and I must say that I completely fell in love with his style of writing. This story had me captivated right from the start, and so I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars and definitely plan on picking up more of Gaiman's work in the future. And so if you do have any recommendations of which book I should try next, please do let me know in the comments down below. And lastly, I recently just picked up and am currently reading Bellman in Black by Diane Setterfield. And so I had read The 13th Tale by her quite a few years back and really adored it, so I thought, why not give another one of her novels a go? So this follows the story of William Bellman, who kills a rook, which is a type of bird, when he was a child. And as the legend goes, a rook never forgets, and killing one is unforgivable. So I expect that some pretty horrible and awful things are going to happen in the life of this character. So that was all for my October wrap-up. If you've read any of the books that I've mentioned, please do let me know what your thoughts were, or let me know which book you've read this month that was your favorite. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you with another video soon, and I hope you all have a lovely day.